If you are experiencing foundation issues, get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
Well, a week from yesterday is the election and the presidential election. A lot of statewide races, several statewide races, and some statewide amendments too. And Gina Grant, chairperson of the Talladega County GOP, joins us. Gina, good morning to you.
Thank you.
Good to have you with us today. And let's talk about the election, which is less than a week away, and we've got a number of amendments, statewide amendments, and
yes.
You know, to be honest, a lot of us look at those statewide amendments and saying, "What statewide amendments?"
Right.
Let's talk about that this morning.
Thank you. The legislature passes bills, and they become law when they are signed by the governor. But there are certain bills that, when they are passed, require the vote of the public, which requires your input. And so these are very important. I want to kind of trigger a little thought for you. When people are running for office for your state representative, you see them as they're running, okay? They're everywhere. But then when we get amendments on the ballot, where are those representatives? Mm-hmm. They should be here explaining these things to you and to me, and they're not, and that kind of concerns me. But we're going to go over them, and I hope they're clear to you when we're finished.
Now, before we get started this morning, the importance, Gina, of us voting on these amendments. It's
yes.
Something we really need to look at.
Amendments can change your life permanently, and we will talk about that. So please, if you will, vote on the amendments. They're extremely important. They do affect you and your future, the future generations.
Well, let's talk about statewide amendment 1 then this morning.
Statewide amendment 1 is extremely important. One of the things that I hear people say is, well, I am concerned about people voting that are not citizens. Mm-hmm. And this says that it provides to a constitution to say that only a citizen of the United States has the right to vote. Well, that just seems to make common sense. However, the wording now says every citizen. And because it says every citizen, no one is obligated to prove they are a citizen. So a lot of red states, if you will, are passing this amendment or trying to get it passed to keep illegals, and we even have college students who come in from foreign countries that come here and vote in our elections, and they're not U.S. citizens. So if you will, please, I am voting yes on Amendment 1, and I hope everyone will join me.
Gina, I guess it's the wording of everything is so important, isn't it?
Yes. It's, things get trickier and trickier as we go on in life, and what used to be accepted because we were a different type of country, more homogenous, all of us knew we were U.S. citizens, and as life becomes more complicated, it's very important to keep the elections as pure as possible, that we have only true American citizens voting. In my opinion, this also, when someone registers to vote, they just click a box and say, I'm a U.S. citizen. Mm-hmm. They don't have to prove it. The registrars cannot even ask for it to be proven. Well, now they can. If this passes, you'll have to, if they ask you to prove it, you'll have to prove it.
Okay. Let's look at statewide amendment 2.
Statewide amendment 2 is a rather long amendment, and it affects the judicial branch. And let me just say this, anything that strengthens your power and authority as a voter, I'm for. Anything that decreases your power and authority as a voter, I'm not for. I'm voting no on Amendment 2. I hope you'll join me. One of the reasons is it does two things. It keeps us from being able to have a judge impeached. That's just one of the things, but it also allows the Alabama Supreme Court justices, all of the justices, as opposed to the Chief Justice, to appoint what's called the Administrator of Courts. And you may think, well, Gina, that's not that important. If we have a liberal court or a conservative court, if you're not for a conservative court, you have the power and authority as a voter to vote for the Chief Justice, who it is up to him or her to appoint that administrator. So that's keeping some power and authority within your grasp, and I recommend doing it. A lot of people probably know Keith Faulkner. He is a constable in Beat 15. Right. He went to a meeting Saturday, and John Merrill was there. Secretary of State John Merrill recommended voting no on Amendment 2. it defunds all constables all across the state. Now, as it stands, some counties have constables, some do not, but at least you get a choice. With this, you will not get a choice. Like I said, that's just one of the things that decreases your power and authority as a voter.
Taken away from us as individuals, taken
Right.
away from us as voters.
Yes.
And ladies and gentlemen, if we aren't careful, these amendments can slide in one way or the other, and we just say,
Yes.
"Well, we're voting for the president." It's much more than the president.
Oh, yes, yes. It's difficult. I know it's difficult being a voter because these things don't get talked about by our legislators, and they should. They should have things on their Facebook page. They should be appearing. They should be sending out emails. You know, all those little postcards you get when they're running. Boy, one of those would be nice, talking about this.
Now, before you get away from this Amendment 2 and the constable's position,
Yes.
What happens with the constables if this goes another direction?
They don't exist at all.
Wow.
They don't exist. No constables exist ever again. And you will see on the ballot, you will see about 7 constables running for re-election. And so they are being used, and I'm telling you, Jefferson County relies on them heavily. Jefferson County uses them heavily. So you're hamstringing some counties.
And two, Gina, the constable position holds a lot of authority.
Yes, it
As
does.
far as arrests are concerned and things like that, they hold basically the same authority as a sheriff does.
Well, and we have to keep in mind when budgets are tight, and like we have a very long county, it's hard to get your deputies everywhere. And if there was a type of emergency, this is a backup for the sheriff's department also. So that's important to remember.
All right, let's talk about statewide amendment number 3.
Statewide amendment number 3 is one of those things, in my opinion, that empowers voters. I am voting yes, and I hope you'll join me. One of the things it does is if a judge retires or resigns or passes away while in office, it allows the appointed judge, who is appointed by the governor, to serve 2 years, and then he has to run for re-election as opposed to fulfilling the entire 4, 5, 6 years. So that puts authority back in your hands. You get to say, okay, this person is who the governor appointed, but is that whom I want? So in 2 years, there has to be an election for that position.
Gina Grant, who is the chairperson for the Talladega County GOP here in Talladega County, our guest this morning, and we're talking about the amendments. There are 7 of these amendments, I believe, and we've talked about a number of these already, but let's go to a statewide amendment number 4.
Statewide amendment number 4, it says to remove racist language. If there was a period there, I could vote, but there's not a period. It also goes on to say that amendment number 4 is going to recompile language that is repeated or no longer applies, which we really don't know what that is, but it says combined language related to economic development. Let me tell you what happened on the last election. There was a statewide amendment that affected a small area north of Huntsville, I believe, that said if you own private property or a farm or what have you, and an industry moved in, you're going to be taxed at that industrial rate. So it effectively taxed people off their property.
Wow.
And we passed that people just got up there and clicked yes. And we've hurt some people. Economic development could mean eminent domain. It could reduce your private property rights. And I will say this to every voter: remember the gas tax. I am voting a definite no on number 4.
Why, Gina, are people just like you and I, the thousands watching this morning, why aren't we just going in and voting yes? Or why aren't we just going in and voting no? I mean, we don't even know anything about this.
People get what I think is election stress. They've seen so many commercials, they've gotten so many things in the mail, they've seen so many things on Facebook. Their minds are made up who they are voting for the major races. And they go, boom, I'm going to go in there, and they think, man, I didn't know these amendments were here. I'll just vote all yes, or I'll just vote all no. You know, that's what's going to hurt. That's what hurts. They just get stressed out. They don't get educated, which I commend you highly, Jimmy Dale. You've always been excellent about informing the people and educating the people and allowing people on your show.
we go to statewide Amendment 5, and I'll be the first to say that when I began reading it, it says relating to Franklin County. It just turns me off right there. I don't have anything to do with Franklin County.
Ladies and gentlemen, when it is a statewide amendment, we all must vote on it. That's what it takes for it to pass. Statewide amendments 5, 6, and the first local amendment read the same. And that is, it is reading that if a person is in a church and needs to defend the members of the church with force by using a gun or whatever to protect them from an invader or a terrorist act, that they will not be held liable, that they will not be found guilty of a crime. It says to provide that a person is not liable for using deadly physical force in self-defense or in the defense of another person on the premises of a church under certain conditions. We refer to that as Alabama's Stand Your Ground law. So that is Amendments 5 and 6, which applies to Lauderdale, which requires us to vote, and I will be voting yes. And it's also Talladega County Local Amendment 1, and that applies, but we just vote on that ourselves. And so I am going to be voting yes on all three of those.
All right, let's go back to this Amendments 5 and Amendment 6, and then the Talladega County Local Amendment 1 pertaining to the same thing. You know, us people in Alabama and in Talladega County, wherever you may be watching this morning, we think that, well, hey, we just got these people to protect us from invaders in the church. It's a whole lot more challenging than that. You got to have laws that protect these individuals that are protecting us.
Correct. You know, a lot of churches now have a security team. And this is one of the things, some of them I'm sure are armed. I'm glad they are, because I mean, you know, that makes me feel safe. Unfortunately, we have seen acts of terrorism carried out in Texas and other churches, and we don't want that to happen. We want our people protecting us to be protected. And Amendments 5 and 6 and Talladega County Local Amendment 1 allows that to happen. And so let's go ahead and vote yes. Those are very important.
All right, now, how can people, Gina, before we go any further, how can the viewers find out more about these before they go to the poll next Tuesday? I mean, we're here this morning kind of jamming all this stuff together, but they need to take time to look at these and study these.
It's very hard. I'm going to be posting on Talladega County Republican Party. You can also go to the Secretary of State's website, sos.alabama.gov, and when you scroll down, you will see statewide amendments. You can click on that, but you must read the entire description, because when you get to the bottom of each amendment, it gives you what I call the plain English version. And that's what you want. You want to be able to understand what it means to you and I. And I would recommend speaking to other people. Like I said, we educate each other. The Bible says iron sharpens iron.
It does. Talladega County Local Amendment number 2, I want to talk about that this morning as well.
This was an amendment that came about because in the city of Lincoln, there was a gentleman who had bought property, and he was literally bringing in, by train and I think by truck, raw human waste.
I remember this.
This is an awful thing. Raw human waste, and dumping it on the ground behind a park. So, of course, the stench, people found out what was going on. And what this bill does, and it's got the input of the Farmers Federation and Alpha, okay? It disallows anyone from dumping any raw sewage, raw human waste in this county so that it can be done no more. That's what we want. I mean, that's a health issue.
Seems like it'd be a no-brainer, you know?
Right, but what it does is for farmers and others who use chicken litter and things like that to fertilize their ground in between growing seasons, it still allows them to do that. And I did check with a Farmers Federation officer to make sure it had their backing. So let's vote yes on Talladega County Local Amendment 2.
And then there's a local referendum as well.
Yes, the local referendum, I think, will only appear on ballots of people who don't live within a city limits. And it's basically allowing for the sale of alcohol on Sundays after 12 o'clock p.m. I tell people to vote their own conscience. I'm personally going to vote no, but obviously that is a personal conscious vote.
Yeah, and a lot of the cities already have the sale on premise and off premises on Sundays. So these are amendments and local referendums that, to be honest with you, Gina, often go unnoticed.
Yes.
We don't talk about them much, and we don't bring it to people's attention, and so therefore we're uneducated when we go in to vote one way or the other, and we're thinking, as you said a little bit earlier, well, we're voting for the president, we're voting for a state senate. These amendments.
Right. It's a
And then it's
shock.
too late to turn around and say, well, I need to think about this. You can't think about it then.
And just to reiterate, I am personally voting no on Amendment 2 and Amendment 4. I think they weaken us as a voter. Everything else I'm voting yes on.
Okay. Gina Grant, who is the chairwoman of the Talladega County GOP Republican Party. And tell us a little bit about what is going on with the Republican Party of Talladega County right now.
Well, we're doing great things, and we've had some times where we've been able to get together and we watched the president's speech together. And so we are just basically winding up for this election and trying to get out and everybody, I encourage people on an individual basis to get out and talk, and if they're going to put signs out, but especially, of course, to encourage everyone they know to vote. And we are hoping and praying for the best.
Well, it has been said that this is the most important election of our lifetime, and it may be. 4 years is a long, long time, and then you've got the state Senate race here in Alabama that's garnered a lot of coverage, and you have the amendments too.
Yes.
So now then, people need to go vote, that's for sure.
And can I, just one more thing to the voters. Unfortunately, we lost Ron Johnson, Representative Ron Johnson, this summer. The election to fill his seat will be January 19th of 2021. So after Christmas, you're going back to the polls. Sorry, guys. You need to be told, though. I want you to be ready.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, Ron Johnson, he certainly won't easily be replaced, but that election coming up in January, so we'll be talking more about that then. But get to the polls and vote on Tuesday. If you're a registered voter in Alabama, there's no reason for us not to go vote.
Correct. We have got to do it, folks. It is of the utmost importance. And I think the October 29th is the last day you can apply for an absentee ballot.
So you do that in Talladega, right?
Yes, at the Judicial Building. You can vote there. You can go and say, give them your ID, and you fill out the application, and they'll give you a ballot right there, and you go across the hall and vote privately. You seal it up and hand it back.
Yep, and you know, if you don't want to hang out in long lines on election day, I don't know what the lines are up there, but you can do that if you choose to do so. Gina, it's always a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you.
Hope you have a fantastic day, and
Certainly.
let's go vote next Tuesday.
I'm ready.
All right, more Daybreak coming up right after this.